I remember just being like, holy fuck, I feel like I'd solved Enigma. And I woke up the next morning and my phone had broken. Turns out that we had sold out overnight, over 5,000 units. We'd made over 160 grand in about 12 hours. I remember secondary to that being like, holy fuck, like we're actually being perceived and we're being taken seriously. I got a DM from a producer that works for Shark Tank and he was just like, what do you think about going on Shark Tank? And I was like, fuck no. You would only go on Shark Tank if you're ready for it because there's going to be a lot that happens after the show. So then I was like, right, we've got one shot to be on Shark Tank and it's one take. This has to be perfect. I just went on with an undervalued business saying 200 grand for 10%. I also didn't want to go on the show and speak for 45 minutes about commercials. I wanted to speak about how good my product was for 45 minutes. Jane Lou, actually, which you don't see in the episode, first question, she goes, was that I'll invest? Oh my God, I was like, what is happening right now? I remember getting the email from Blackbird being like, we want it, like all 2 million for 20%. And then I would just like burst into tears, feel like I'm going to pass out.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. This is one of the most fun, easiest podcasts I've ever had. We hardly come up with there. It's one of the podcasts you just get into a groove. We had Annabel Hay on the podcast. So smart, such an amazing operator. The way she's approached this whole business journey, she's done some incredibly smart things. So we jump into her journey, all the amazing decisions she's made. So much value in this. I'm honestly buzzing from this conversation. We'll get into it in a second because I know you guys are going to love this. She's honestly one of the most impressive female founders I've ever interviewed. So we'll get into the podcast in a second. For those watching on YouTube, on the road to 5K, please hit subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really do appreciate it. And it's free and it takes you 2 seconds. And hit like on this video as it really helps get it out in front of more people. And for everyone listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could take the time to leave me a 5-star review, I just want you to know I really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who's done it over the last few weeks. Enough from me. Let's get into the podcast. All right, we're back again. I feel like this is going to be a high energy episode because it's about to be a long weekend and I'm kind of buzzing. And I know you seem very outgoing. You're like this air of positivity around you everywhere you go. I think Frank Grief described it as aura. You got an aura about. So this is going to be a fun episode. Another e-com retail business brand builder, one that I know all our audience is going to listen to. So we'll jump into it in a second. We have Annabel Hay sitting across from me today, the founder of Clutch Guru, a company that I only launched like 2.5 years ago, already valued from my research over $10 million, which is insane in such a short amount of time.
Wild. Yeah.
Wild. I want to talk, actually, I don't always talk about the investment journey because I think for a lot of the people listening, that's probably irrelevant to a small percentage.
Yeah.
But I think the way you approached it was a little bit different. So we'll chat about that towards the back end of the podcast, but just a little bit of like context for who you guys are. If you don't know them, I reckon you're one of Australia's like fastest growing brands. You broke records going on Shark Tank. I was going to say beauty brands. Are you a beauty brand? Like what category do you sit in?
Yeah, contentious, that right? Yeah, that's it. It depends. Like, are you a regulator? Very different answer to, a buyer and for a retail buyer. But I think we're just like a personal care, like fashion accessories, beauty products. We're just a product that every single girl needs.
Yeah. We were talking off air about like how insane all your growth is really quickly. And you said to me, like, I would have loved to say I knew all this was going to happen. I feel like you would have had a bit of like belief in yourself with all the time and money that you invested. One of my first questions was going to be, with a product like this, when you had the idea off the back of that fateful night at Chinese Laundry and you knew you were going to create this glue that's like non-toxic and replaces all that like tape and stuff that's going around there, did you know that like if you can actually nail the formula, did you know you were onto such a winner? Because
totally.
As a guy's perspective, not even a girl, obviously, groundbreaking news. It just seems like if someone could actually do this, it's just like a license to sort of like,
totally.
Yeah. How did you feel going into it once you had that idea?
I just knew though that like I've never had an original experience in my life. You and I are just humans walking around this planet. And I was like, I'm just one of the girls. And if everybody's using fashion tape in this club, every girl's using fashion tape right now. I know all my friends use it and I know that we talk about how much we hate it. I was like, you know what? If I know that 10 of my friends will buy it, I'm fairly confident maybe at least 100 people will buy it. And that's kind of just that small delusion, but also just that positivity was what got me through and kind of was the reason why I knew it was a pretty good idea.
You honestly, like, I'm almost afraid sometimes when I have these podcasts that we're too real on them because you don't want to, I know there's a lot of like really early stage entrepreneurs listening and I don't think they do get discouraged because overall the overarching message of this is really inspirational. But I think you need a bit of that like naivety and delusion about you because if you knew all the shit you'd have to do now going into it, you'd probably think
I'd do a double take for sure. I probably would still do it because I am insane. But yeah, it just knowing what I know now, wow, there were so many things that I just didn't anticipate happening that very much did happen.
Speaking of being insane, did you were you the type of person that always felt like you were going to be an entrepreneur, or was it just one thing after another sort of fell into it?
It's interesting. I think that speaking to any founder, you'll sort of find that there's this common ground in that there's always kind of just that like fire burning where you're just like, I just know that I'm not just like the 9 to 5 kind of girl. Like I can do it and I'm going to be really good at it.
Yeah.
But when you're really good at doing your day job and then you still have energy at the end of the day to do something else, that's when I was like, okay, like I got it in me to at least give it a go. And that's just when I was like, you know what, I just still had the energy at the end of the day to like go out and stay curious, like do little side projects or even, you know, down to just, wanting to do a side gig. I think at one point I was really into clothes and I was like, if I worked retail on the weekends at my favorite clothing store, it meant that I could maybe get a discount on clothes. And all my friends were like, Annabel, you work full-time as a construction manager and you're still thinking about working on the weekend because you want discounted clothes. Like, that's insane. But like, that to me was just like, it was a no-brainer because I was like, well, I've still got energy to do these things and I want to do it. So, you know, you sort of just like have that fire and that desire to just like keep being productive.
And one thing I think the difference between me and you, there's some people, and I think you're probably more in the unique side of this. It's like you like sort of enjoyed that job and did well at it and you still had the energy. Most people, I know I fucking hated it. I couldn't wait for the day I could quit my job. But you actually stayed, and fast forwarding a little bit, you actually stayed with your full-time role. You've spoken publicly about how much respect and admiration you have for them for the way they let you navigate this journey.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like process like of like quitting your job and going through that process? Because I speak to a lot of people every day and they're like, get me out of this job.
Yeah.
But you kind of took your time with it, right?
I did. It was 2 years for the product being out on the market. I only quit my full-time job at the end of last year.
Wow.
And that was the hardest day of my life. I cried like all day. My bosses were like, this is really exciting. And I was like, I think it wasn't because I was excited to leave and start this new journey because I knew that there was so much opportunity and I was going to put so much more time and effort into growing this. And honestly, the proof is in the pudding. In the past 6 months, we've still done. We've gone absolutely insane again, right? Which has been obviously, you know, a great thing. But it was more losing that connection to that 9 to 5, that every day, having an office to go into. Like, again, I was such a people person and like just not having an office to just go into every single day and just chat shit with your friends and your colleagues and all of that work drama. I was like, God, I'm going from like an office of 300-400 people to literally sitting in my house every single day, pretty much alone. Like I have my sister and I have my COO who like we work together closely every single day and, you know, maybe a day or two a week we work together as a team. But that was probably my main fear, was that I was going to become incredibly isolated.
Yes.
And as someone who is such an extrovert and gets so much energy from being around people, that was the main, deterrent as to why I didn't really want to quit my job.
So you really understood yourself and what made you feel good. But tell me, because I remember I did opposite experience. We launched our business in April 2018. I didn't quit my job 2 years after we launched. I quit my job 2 weeks after we launched. So it was really crazy. But I still remember it was actually the best day of my life. So sort of different, but obviously like amazing for both of us. How did you feel when you sat down at your desk that first day and you realized, okay, no one telling me what to do, no one, like, no times, I've got to do all these things, no reports to send. Like, how did that change? Because I imagine when you're working your full-time job and then you got your however many hours after work, you're very structured and with your time, like, I need to get all this done in this amount of time because all I had.
Yeah.
How did that change when you realized I've got 16 hours today if I wanted it to just work on this business? How was that adjustment?
It was like I have Stockholm syndrome, obviously, because all I did was end up just still working the exact same hours, but only on the business, right? So it just like didn't pull my focus away from things. And then I ended up just going like full on 16 hours every single day. I have since obviously went through a phase of burnout there just for a little moment. So I realized that I needed to kind of dial it back, and I could, and I had that luxury to do that. But I think that also when you're finally taking a salary from the business, you're like, I have to I know how much every single dollar this is worth. Like, I know how many sales that's worth. Like, you're doing all the maths in your head, right? Being like, this is, this many sales equals this, my monthly salary.
Like everything's floating around and you're trying to calculate it all. Yeah.
Exactly. And then from there, I was just like, all right, I have to milk every single cent that I am taking from this business and make sure that I'm putting back in as much work as I perceive that much, money to be. So that to me was just kind of an interesting psychological barrier that I needed to get through. And now I've got there. I would still say that I still definitely work about 11 or 12 hours a day. Not because I have to, because I just genuinely love it. I love it.
What was your investors and the ones you spoke to going through that process? What were they thinking about you still like working full time and like continuing to do all that? Were they like, okay, good on you? Or were they like, you're being a little bit crazy? Yeah.
I think that they knew where I was. Like they really understood that they were like, this is a really big leap, and like they really supported me as well. I think that just like having that trust and that dialogue with people around you means that I didn't have to explain myself, because they kind of just already knew what I was going through in my head, and they were just there to always listen. And then they realized that of course I had epiphanies where I was just like, all right, I like actually do really need to start like working full time in this business. And they were like, yes, like welcome.
Yeah.
Glad you're here.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So yeah, it's just important to just like have that dialogue. Don't keep anything from anyone. Like I have, I can keep no secrets. Obviously, I'm just like tell everybody what I'm thinking all the time. But that has resulted in fostering really great relationships with these people that have supported me.
So like those changes you go through and that growth you go through as an entrepreneur, it's really important to not like attach ego onto old decisions you make, and always trying to have that like, confirmation bias where you're like, no, look, I was right. And just the ability to be like, okay, I realize that I'm going to do this now. I think it's a really important skill as an entrepreneur, and like some things will be easy to spot, other things it'll be a little bit harder to realize. Sometimes you're too close to it. Well, but were there any other like misconceptions you had about business like prior to launching or very early stages that now you've since realized and okay, I should do this, or there's a reason it's commonly done like that? Was there any misconceptions that have changed for you?
I tell you what, there's a big misconception that I'll speak to an actual experience that we've had with a customer. Was we went on Shark Tank, as you briefly mentioned, and on the show, they asked me what my cost of goods is to sell my product, which is a fair and reasonable question to ask on a show. The reason why I think that is an incredibly inappropriate question to ask is that we all know that, there's cost of goods, and then there's also my overheads, like my variables. It costs me, my 3PL fees. I've got to pay my employees. I've got to pay legal fees. I've got to pay my accountants. All of these things are huge overheads. So often, especially when you're scaling a business, you're losing money.
Yeah.
So we then received this hate email from somebody being like, fuck you, I can't believe that you sell it for $29 when it only costs you this much to make. And that devastated me, because I was like, what am I going to do? Go back to them and be like, well, my accountants cost me $10,000 a month, and then like I'm not going to explain that, am I? But like,
you can't let that get to you.
That's just a really common misconception, is like when you're in business, these things, you understand the difference between cost of goods and then just like, cost of acquisition and like all of these different things. And then the common person doesn't. And that's just the difference between people. I'm not going to fight that battle.
Yeah.
But it's just a misconception that I had, was just like, and I would have been subject to this as well. Like when in the beauty industry, they talk about how, a Birkin bag, it's like an 800% markup, right, from Hermes or whatever. But then you come in, then now as a business person, I'm thinking, well, they do all these crazy activations, they do all this marketing and I was just like, there's so much more to consider here than just your cost of.
I know, like I see it on just random ads, not even my businesses, all the time. I see a random ad, why would you buy this for X price when you can get it for X off whatever different marketplace? I'm like, if it was so easy, then go and do it.
Exactly.
Do you realize how much is it? Like businesses are not making 50% margin at the end of the day. They're not rolling in money. Most of them are losing money or barely making ends meet.
Exactly.
I just think it's the level of understanding. I think that there's too big of a gap in terms of where people are at in that conversation.
Yeah.
And if you try and let your no, but let me explain it, I just don't think it's going to work out 90% of the time.
They don't want to hear it.
They don't want to hear it, right?
Hey, just quickly, if you're interested in getting started in e-com or scaling your current brand, or maybe even just getting your current idea off the ground, then send me a message on Instagram and I'll reply to you personally as soon as I get a chance. I usually only take on a few people per month for mentorship, so if you're interested in having a chat, shoot me a DM with the word mentor and we'll go from there. Anyway, enough from me. Let's get back to the pod.
So let's rewind a little bit and we'll go through it. That fateful night Chinese laundry, you had whatever mishap and you're like, I'm over this. How long between that day and you thinking, and I'm actually going to do something about this, and then you actually starting to work on it? What was that like delay between those moments for you?
So I think, and again, you would know the same thing, right? You got that moment where you're like, oh my God, this is actually a good idea. And then I woke up the next morning and it was the first thing that I thought about. And I was just like, it's still a really good idea. I still rate that.
Like, I'm off the wines now, but still a good idea.
No, no.
Great time.
Holy moly,
Yeah.
I'm a genius. And then I was like, right, like how am I actually going to like do that? Because like inventing a glue, like where do I start with that, right? What I first started to do though was that I like started Googling on the internet. I was like, surely, as I said, never had an original experience. Surely somebody else has thought about this before. So I started Googling things. Sure, there were eyelash glues, wig glues, you name it. But like there was no specific glue that is for your clothes and your skin. It's hypoallergenic, it's vegan, it washes out in the wash, it's sweat resistant, all of these things. Also, the packaging needs to be 100% recyclable and all of that good stuff. And I was like, right, there's a huge opportunity here. So then what I decided to do was just like buy glues, like
Different types.
every glue. Like I'm talking super glue. I'm like literally I went to like Bunnings, bought like wood glues and things like that. And I was just kind of like there assessing like what the ingredients are like in glue. It was like just quite fascinating to me really to understand how this all works. And then I was like, okay, anyway. And I kind of just like put a matrix together of like what the water soluble, the non-water soluble glues like commonly had in them, you know, give and take a few different things. And I was like, right. And I kind of like had this matrix and then I just sat on it because I was like, what? I'm not a scientist. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, seriously. Then I kind of obviously parked it up for a little while and I was just like, okay, like who knows? And that fateful night on Chinese laundry was the 11th of July, 2017.
That process was before Chinese laundry?
No, that was half done.
Okay.
And so I'd say that was like a couple weeks, you know, of just kind of like fucking around, just like doing some bits. And then I remember my aunt and uncle were visiting from Singapore and they flew in and my uncle had just started a business. He works in mining. And I was like, I've had this idea. And like I was telling my mum and dad about it. My mum and dad are just so supportive, but like they couldn't care if I had an idea about like being a garbage man. They'd be like, go for it. Like, we love you. And so anyway, like they were like, yeah, okay, figure it. You can figure that out. And then my uncle was like, oh yeah. And then he started just rattling off being like, yeah, so you'll probably want to find someone to formulate that for you. And then you'll probably get a lawyer involved just to do this. And I just like started writing it down being like, cool, like next steps, I guess. And then he was like, it's going to be the hardest thing for you to find somebody to formulate this for you. And it's going to be your IP and your formula, right? So they sign all their rights away at the end of the day. And he was like, that's going to be really hard to find. It's also going to be hard to find somebody who you trust who ultimately isn't then just going to like run away with it.
To someone else or yeah.
Right. So I was like, okay, now that I know that and I know that people do that, then I was like, you know what, I'm going to keep it in Australia because I feel like I can trust Australians. Like, I don't know. That was just like my logic at the time was just.
Oh, logical safety, no?
Yeah. I was just like, let's do it in Australia. Seems like the right next step. And so then I emailed UNSW because I know that they get people in to do research projects. And so I emailed the chemical engineering department and I was like, do you have anyone who would do like a little side project for me? And they were like, no. And I was like, fair enough.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, anyway, I don't know where to go with this because I've like got to know. So like maybe again, like this is all too hard, whatever. And then like a couple months later, I was like scrolling through just like really nice houses on Pinterest because I just love looking at, you know, beautiful decor. And I was like, fuck, I'm not going to be able to afford this being a construction manager. I was like, Annabel, get off your fucking ass. Let's email everybody, like any university in Australia. Let's give this another crack. So I was like, okay. So I did it. A couple months later, sent UNSW an email again. And I was just like, hey, circling back on this, that wasn't particularly helpful, your last response. Do you have anybody who might have the capacity to do this? And then they respond being like, very recently, we've actually got somebody who's just flown in from the US who's here to invent fire retardants. Yep. And I went, okay.
Sweet.
And I went, whatever. Like anyone's better than nothing.
Yeah. Let me have a chat.
Let's have a little chit chat. So I got onto him, I sent him an NDA, signed it, and then we jumped on a call and I gave him a spiel. I need a sweat-resistant, water-soluble clothes adhesive, seriously strong, won't seep through your clothes. It needs to be this consistency, needs to be palm oil-free, vegan, hypoallergenic, all of these things, and it needs to be able to be shelf-stable for 2 years, you name it. Like the laundry list just went on and on and on and on, and I was like, can you do it? And he was like, yeah, like I got 9 PhDs, and I was like, let's go. I was like, bingo. So then I was like, all right, like, here you go. Like we did the contract. I got a commercial lawyer on board. We signed, like did the contract, whatever. And it was for $35,000 was to invent this glue, no matter how long it took.
Yeah, so there's no time.
No time limit.
That's a pretty good deal.
You need to.
You know, what's still a lot of money, but
Still a lot of money, but I only need to pay him when he did it. So like, again, that was the trade-off, was that I was like, this is a pretty risk-free thing. Also, we either can't invent it and I'd lose no money, or we invent it and I've got to pay 35 grand and then I've got this formula. Epic. So
and then worst case, you're like, I don't want to do this business myself. You could have sold that to someone else for way more.
exactly right. So I was like, you know what, this is logical. Like, let's do it. Took him a year in the end, about 13 samples, and all of them were shit, but one.
So was it like not progressively better and then just one day, boom, he had it? Or
Yeah,
was that,
progressively, you know, getting
Little bit
better
by bit.
bit by bit. And then there was just comments around like consistency. And then we had a panel of people that had different skin conditions that then were testing it to make sure that they could actually use it. So there was a lot of, you know, quality assurance that went into this process as well. So like, you know, we'd go into testing and then, you know, we'd get the batch, we'd distribute it to everybody, get the comments back, all of that kind of thing, have big meetings, like all of that. So it was a pretty large process.
How did you work that out? Because I think I have a lot of conversations with like some people I'm mentoring that are trying to start brands and like products that are solving different things. How did you go about like structuring the testing process? Because I'd love a little bit of insight into the way you thought about that, because I think it could be valuable to some people listening.
So I think there were like 5 different pillars that I identified as being important. So one of them was the consistency, and it couldn't be too runny because otherwise it would seep through your clothes, but then it couldn't be too thick, otherwise you wouldn't be able to get it out of the tube.
Yeah, okay.
So there was sort of the consistency was one. There was any kind of allergies was another one. There were ingredients to do with like, is this one really good, but it has palm oil in it? Like there were just, you know, like little exceptions there where I was like, right, like, am I going to have to make some concessions for this at the end of the day? And then there was, what else was there? Like the color of it, like some of them came back like, you know, just being weird colors, like, or they dried white instead of clear, you know, like things like that where you're like, well, it needs to dry clear because if I'm a person of color, I don't want this like weird white cast, you know, so we just needed to make sure that it was super inclusive. So there were just like 5 main pillars that I remember identifying, being like, this is what's important. And then, the final one being sweat resistant, but water soluble, so it washes.
Yeah, I like that. No hearts is not an easy problem to solve.
No, not at all, not at all. But like,
unless you have 9 PhDs.
Unless you have 9 PhDs, then that's not a problem.
Or probably won't get it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I guess we'll never know. And so anyway, then that was basically the feedback, and that everybody would need to enter every single time that they got a new sample. And then from there, it was like they filled it in and they needed to test it and fill it in within 7 days. So they had like 7 days to test it, do their thing.
Is it friends, family or randos?
Friends, family. Cool. Only friends, family, because there were people that I knew I could trust and they weren't going to, you know, run away and do something else with this. So again, I just like kept it very insular. I made them sign NDAs to make sure that they, again, like weren't going to tell anyone.
Like no mum, sign the NDA, yeah.
Yeah, because you just like, again, like you just don't know, like who might just be having a little drunken chit chat and they're talking about, oh, I'm doing this testing for this product at the moment. You just don't know. Some people, because
it's like a race at that point to get it to patent.
Exactly.
If someone else gets the idea and does it first,
exactly right,
kind of screwed.
Exactly right. So I was like, you know, let's do this. So then, like once we finally landed on the clutch formula, and that's just when everyone just came back being like, yes, 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 and I was like, okay.
How are you feeling that day?
I remember just being like, holy fuck, I feel like I'd solved Enigma. Like that's probably...
You've cracked it.
Who knows, you know, whether that's actually the feeling, but I think that might be the feeling.
Yeah.
So then I remember being like, oh my God, I've done it. And then once I'd done that, nothing else like felt like a challenge to me. I was like, that was the hardest part.
Yeah.
Now that that's done, I know that I can delegate the rest, really. Like we're going to find a lawyer, we're going to patent it, we're going to trademark it, we're going to find a name, we're going to get my sister on board who's a creative. She was a copywriter at Ogilvy and DDB for a long time, and I was like getting her on board. She's going to do all the marketing, all the branding, everything. Like that was exciting. It was like, holy fuck, we've done it.
Yeah.
Done it. Like now we get to do the fun part, which is like building the brand and the story and all of that. And then between conception and launch it was 4 years.
4 years in total. Now, you had that $35,000 relatively risk-free investment because you only pay on completion.
Yeah.
But then you speak to your lawyer like, oh my God, we've done it, and obviously recommends patenting. Now, that's a significantly larger investment. How did what was going through your head when you figured out how much it was going to cost to patent and everything? And at that point, you're all in, or you're not because of that? It's a big, it's a serious investment. How was that thought process?
So I remember talking to my patent lawyer about it, being like, am I going to be like the brokest person on the planet? And he was just like, oh, give and take, but it's worth it. And I was like, okay, good to know. So I remember he was like, you got to do the international assessment first. So you lodge your international assessment, which then takes, he was like, between like 9 months and 3 years, they'll get back to you. And I was like, what the fuck is that about? Anyway, so that all kind of happened, and then we filed it, and then it was another, 3 years of doing the rest of this stuff, right? And so then once it came to the 1st of December 2022, when we launched Clutch, about a week prior to that, our international assessment came back, and it said that this is globally patentable. It is. Go ahead and lodge it in every single country. You've got 12 months between that international assessment coming back and then you filing your patents across the world. If you miss that 12-month deadline, then you miss it and you can't actually then go.
So if someone tried to copy you guys within that 12 months, you were still protected?
Still protected.
Yeah, cool.
Still protected, even with that patent pending. So anyway, that's what we did, but we kind of prioritized different countries first, knowing that I had 12 months to do it.
Yeah.
I started in Australia and the US and the UK, and then I went, okay, Europe and then India and then China and Hong Kong and Singapore. Like I then decided to cherry pick just like what our priorities were. So it wasn't this lump sum of money all at the same time. It was just like prioritizing what we wanted to do first. And then off the back of that, what's secondary and what kind of trickles on after that. Mostly at the advice too of our patent lawyers to be like, you really should have IP protection here. And we also took that advice as well.
So beyond that point, let's talk about some of the other things you're just mentioning, the brand story and the conception of, what is Clutch today.
Yeah.
What did that process look like? You got your sister in a room together, like, let's nut this out. How did you end up on the name you did? And how did you build this foundation of the actual brand itself?
Totally. So Clutch is Clutch, right? Like I just couldn't imagine it to be called anything else. Like it's such a good name. And I remember, I wrote down one day, I was like, I need a name for this product, because I think at the time I was just calling it like boob glue or something, all right? And I was like, okay, I'm going to need to like figure out a name for this. So I looked up a bunch of synonyms for the word hold. And I was like, okay, that's like a good place to start. And I wrote down heaps of them, and there were a bunch of different words on there, one of them being clutch. And then there were just like other kind of key phrases, like one was like underdog, one was deputy, like there were, a few other little just like wordy words that I just like wrote down. And I wrote them on a Post-it note and I stuck them on the fridge. And then every single day I'd like come to the fridge in the morning and I'd like just strike out the ones that I decided I didn't like.
Yeah.
And then by the 7th day, I remember like Clutch was the only one there. And I was like, it's Clutch.
Do you remember what the second last one was? Like, what was the toss-up?
Deputy.
Clutch, I think you made the right decision.
Yeah.
Deputy, I wouldn't really... my mind just goes naturally to other places.
Yeah, and also just like, I don't know, I feel like there's too many soft consonants. Like clutch is like powerful, it's punchy, and also it's a verb.
Yep.
We talk about clutching in, clutched in, all of those kinds of things where I'm like that like we've become, the new pawpaw cream of the world,
Everyone's got their little...
Everyone's got their little red tube, and I was just like, we are that, like we are Clutch.
So let's talk about the launch. So you launched with still patent pending or patent confirmed?
We did, yeah.
What launch look like? What was the launch strategy? How did it go? Overwhelming, underwhelming, sort of somewhere in between? What was that like?
It's hilarious. Like it was literally just me and my family sitting at the dining table at my parents' house and just like pressing like live, and then like our friends buying it, and I also forced my dad
I love the friends
to buy it.
Orders, yeah.
But that meant the world to me. Also people that I wouldn't have expected to supporting it, which means a lot. Like that truly is amazing. And so I remember launching it, we maybe sold, 20, and then that was kind of it, right? And then I was like, oh my God, I then had that like stark realization where you're like, oh no, the work starts now. Like that now we need to actually get people to buy this. And it's like one thing, I just thought that maybe posting an Instagram story and then my friends posting Instagram stories, like that would be enough to like spread the word. Like absolutely fucking not. Like how naive.
Yeah.
And so that's then when I was like, all right, we're going to actually need to try and like figure some stuff out. And I had no money. Like at this point I'd fully just drained my bank account. And I was like, what do I do? And my sister was like, just start posting on TikTok. Just like, I don't know, talk to camera, do random little things, little trends, like whatever. Just like do it all.
Because that's one of the conversations I had. Like, what did the early days marketing look like for you? Because with a $30 product like cost price, it's going to be very difficult to just start off on a platform like Meta Ads, right?
Totally.
where did you, so you sold, last year being 2024, you sold over 100,000 units.
Yeah.
The year you launched end of 2022, the year before, what did the year before look like? And when was that moment? Like, what changed? Like, what was it, a marketing moment? Was it a PR mention? Was it Shark Tank?
Yeah.
What was that moment that changed and everything started to snowball from there?
What's interesting is that like now I've had like quite a few checkpoints where like, I guess revenue checkpoints or like things like that where you, I don't know, like you get into a retailer and that's like a big checkpoint and things. But like the first moment, and I still remember, I wish I could relive this day for the rest of my life. Like it was the best day of my life. I remember it was a Sunday. I was over at my sister's house and she was like, we just need to film like bulk demonstration videos. Like you can use it on a spaghetti strap, you can use it on a strapless top, you can use it on socks so they don't fall into your shoes, on bike shorts, on pants for a temporary home. Like we were doing every single use case under the sun. I bought my whole wardrobe over to my sister's house and we just filmed it in her backyard doing demonstrations of like, apply it like this if you're going to use this fabric, da-da-da-da-da, so on and so forth. And we just filmed like a series of like 10, 15 second little like demo videos and we just had them in the bank ready to go. Anyway, there was one comment that I'd received off like a very random little like cap cut like video that I made just being like, oh, could you use this on a spaghetti strap? And so I just like replied to the comment with a video on TikTok. And using one of the videos that we'd fully just filmed. And it was me, a 10-second video of me sticking a spaghetti strap to my shoulder, and that was it. And I remember I uploaded it, and then I went home, went to bed, and I remember I checked it like when I went home because it was the first time we went in 300 view jail, and it had like 4,000 views, and I was like, wow, oh my God, like we're not in jail anymore. This is epic.
Yeah.
And then I went to bed and I woke up the next morning and my phone had broken because it turns out that we had sold out overnight. Over 5,000 units was my first order that I did with my manufacturer. We'd sold all of them overnight. We'd made over 160 grand in about 12 hours. And I think that comment received, that video reply that I made on TikTok, it received over 9 million views, 420,000 likes. And my phone had just like literally shut the bed. It was just like, I don't know what's going on.
See, this is the stories that make people like believe in dreams. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what? From one viral post, $160,000 in sales in half a day.
Yeah.
That's just so mental.
It was mental. But also the worst part was then we had like no stock.
Yeah. Well,
And I was like, oh my God. And so I was like calling my manufacturer being like, and like I need more. And like that was fine. But then I needed the packaging and I needed, you know, all of these things. I was like, oh my God, this is going to take time. Anyway, the good part was, as mentioned, we had all of these pre-filmed videos. So you can imagine all the comments we're getting being like, could I use this on a strapless top? Could I use this on a silk scarf? Could I use this on my socks? And we just had all of them in the bank. And so we just went boom, 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 boom. And then now we've just been on that trajectory ever since.
So were you posting them like immediately and switch straight onto pre-sale, like to keep that momentum? Or did you like, oh, well, I can't really post anything for a little while because it's going to be 6 weeks or 4 weeks until we have stock? How'd you approach that? Because I remember early days for us, we were selling out faster than we can get stock in. We order as much as we could, but it took us like 6 months of like sending cards saying, sorry, we're doing our best. Like, how did you navigate that? Because it can be a little bit tricky to navigate, and obviously you don't want to take your foot off and just let the momentum die either.
Yeah, you can't let the momentum die, and that is the best lesson there though, is that like keep posting. It was once the algorithm loves you, fuck, it's really hard to get balance. Like you've got to get it. And so regardless of whether you're ready for it or not, you're in, like strap in. For us, it was pretty much just like, okay, like thank you so much for the love, and all it did was just like create this kind of exclusivity around the product where it was just like, oh, okay, this is something that I really, really love. So then once the stock started to like trickle in, it was just like, all right, like, and we just kept selling. And then around at a similar time, I was like, we were getting a lot of comments being like, I needed this yesterday, or like I was in the Uber today and like, damn, I wish I saw this video. And I was like, that to me was just like, we need to be in retail. I need to be able to have this available to people when they need it most. And it's normally when they're in an Uber on a night out or in the club and they've had a wardrobe malfunction, or they're getting ready for work post gym and they realize that pair of pants that they meant to get hemmed, they obviously didn't hem themselves overnight. You know, stuff like that where you're just like, I need to be in retail. So then I was like, I'm just going to start guessing email addresses. Because I don't know anyone in retail. I was like, how am I going to get in front of these people? So in my mind, I was like, I'm just going to guess email addresses. So I started
Find the odd format and just, okay, I'm sure that's
fully,
it.
and different iterations, of the name, the whole thing. And you just, anyone in sales pretty much like
Does that. Yeah, I did that when I was there. First name, dot last name, just first name, initial, then yeah. I did that.
literally. And so I did that a bunch of times. And I remember Priceline being sort of in the top of my, one of pharmacy being a really, really good channel for Clutch. And so I remember messaging somehow getting the buyer's email address successfully through guessing her email address. And then she replied being like, so interesting. I've seen this all over my TikTok, and somebody in marketing told me this morning that we should try and stock this product in Priceline. And so it was just this perfect storm.
Yeah. All comes together.
And it all just fell into place. And that, I remember then secondary to the moment we went viral and sold out, I remember secondary to that being like, holy fuck, we're actually being perceived and we're being taken seriously by people. And that's when I was like, all right, I've got a responsibility here. We really need to get this going.
How long was that Priceline moment post-launch? How long in between then?
It was about 6 months, I'd say. And then we ended up getting ranged beginning of December 2023. So by the time you then have these conversations and then do their range reviews and the whole thing, it took about 6 months for us to end up on the shelves.
From actually early contact to in stores is actually
really good.
Great.
It's really good.
Right.
Really
It's
quick.
probably on the lower end that you can ever be. It's 6 to 12 months. Sometimes it can be even longer. Yeah.
12, 18 normally. Normally. So we were really lucky in that they were like, well, the range review actually isn't until February, but we understand that this is a really good summer product. And they were like, we're going to get you in on an ad
Broke the
hoc.
rules for you. Look at that.
All right. And then they were like, this is really exciting. We want to have a custom hang sell unit so that, because it was quite a small product, now it looks different in retail because again, you don't want to get lost on shelf, and that's a whole other conversation that we can have about retail. But they were like, can we have this hang sell box that stands on the end of the aisle so people, can see and whatever and look for it. And I was like, yeah, we can do that. And then, of course, you start getting the pricing back for that kind of stuff. And you're like, holy fuck, I've got to front up so much money before I end up actually then getting paid. It's a big investment going into retail. And that to me was frightening. And still to this day, I'm like, I can't believe that somehow I made that work with no money in the bank, because God, money in, money out, right? The second you start making a profit, the tax man then comes knocking on your door being like, by the way, I get half of that. And you're like, oh my God. So that was just this whole interesting thing where I was just like, oh my God, we are just when will I start making money, and it does come. You just got to trust the process.
Of course. I imagine a lot would have changed after that moment where the other because I know you're in CVS in the US, you're in Woolies in Australia, Chemist Warehouse in New Zealand.
Yep. In Boots in the UK.
They're in Boots. No, congratulations. I hear they can be quite difficult to get into for a lot of people. Very exclusive getting into Boots.
Yeah.
How did you deal with all that additional attention? I imagine there would have been some meat press off the back of that.
Yep.
It was at the moment that just you really started to feel, holy shit, this is real.
Yeah.
This is real.
This is real.
Who are the other retailers? So again, Priceline sort of a serendipitous sort of moment where it all fell together. Out of the other retailers that you stocked in now, who was the hardest one to crack, and what did they want to see? What convinced them to stock Clutch?
Yeah, so an interesting one. We're not in Woolies anymore, and I'll come back to that in a second.
I'll have another question. That I've heard a bit of a story there. Yeah,
there's a bit of a yarn we need to talk about with that. But hardest one to crack, I would say, probably just from improving ourselves perspective. So CVS, we're in 3,000 CVS stores now. However, the beginning of the arrangement was you get a 6-month trending end cap, which means that you're on the end of the aisle, and we were sharing, the end of the aisle with a bunch of different trending brands. And if your sell-through rate needs to be, 1 unit per store per week, and you're in 200 stores, if you do not meet that, then you do not get included in the range review that we have. So we had a clear objective, which was we need to sell a fucking ton of this shit. We need to sell so much. We need to not be doing 1.1. We need to be doing 3, 4, 5. And that's what we ended up doing. We just ended up investing a lot into organic comms and marketing over there to make sure that people knew, to driving them into those CVS stores to get it.
So what does that look like? Local content creators? How did you actually drive? Because again, people think the hardest part about retail is getting into retail. That can be difficult, but then staying in retail and staying there.
Yeah. As they say on Dance Moms, it's hard to get to the top. It's even harder staying there. And that could not be more true when it comes to retail.
Yeah.
So yeah, we ended up just doing a bunch of different things, local, and then just organic comms. It was really great. Around the time that we were arranged in CBS, that Shark Tank episode aired, and so again, and then that global reach that we got from that, I think that that pitch alone has like over 350 million views across socials, which is hectic, and just those moments were a tipping point where 1 week we'd be selling 1 unit per store per week, but then the next week it turns out that we sold 12 units per store per week. So it just like would flip flop between, and we could identify those key moments where I was like, well, I know why.
Yeah.
It's because that video just literally racked up 50 million views today. And that really helped.
Insane.
With all of that. So again, like there's so much of it that is out of your control, but whatever you can control, being that comms, like that's super, super important.
How much, like, those stories are really cool. I think TikTok and like in Reels is maybe a little bit more saturated now today than 18, 24 months ago. Are you still able to get those sorts of views today, or is that like how important is organic to you guys today versus then? And is there still those massive wake up millions of views the next day?
Yeah, there are. And the reason being, we are such a founder-led brand, and mostly what goes viral is my sister and I, who operate this business, just doing like guerrilla marketing. Those go crazy.
What's your favorite like video guerrilla marketing style thing that you guys have done?
There were two things that we've done to this day where I'm just like, that was just fucking genius. Like just, and not even like at the time thinking it was genius, it was just afterwards I was like,
yeah, fuck yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the one moment where we went to Taylor Swift, and it was the Eras tour. She was here. She was performing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And I texted my sister on like the Tuesday beforehand, and I was like, I'm seeing people are DIYing their Taylor Swift outfits, because that was the trend that people were doing custom made, leotards and custom made outfits and this whole thing. If you've ever DIY'd an outfit before, you know that it's all well and good when you're making it and you're like standing in the mirror still in this outfit that you've made. It's another thing when you start walking around in it and you're on public transport and you're sitting down, standing up, you're moving around. And I was like, I just know for a fact there are going to be people that turn up to a core stadium that are fully falling out of their outfit. I just know that they are. And I was like, Luce, should we just like go to Taylor Swift and stand outside with a sign saying free outfit repairs and just clutch people in? Right. And she was like, okay. So we got $100 sign printed from my printer. And we just stood outside the venue and we clutched in hundreds of people. People just came up to us being like, thank God you're here,
So you weren't even inside?
No. We weren't inside. We were just outside. And it was just the most beautiful moment connecting with our audience, either people that have heard of us before or haven't heard from us before. And it was just this moment of proving to people in an untransactional and non-transactional exercise, just to be like, this works and I'm here to help you.
Did you capture like a lot of content from that?
Yeah, we did. And I think that we uploaded that video the second that we got home, and literally within, I think 3 hours, we had 3 million views. So it was just things like that where I was just like, just girlhood and just helping people and resonating with people. I feel like now so much content is just like seems evil and transactional when it's just not. And I think the only way to do that is by being there, boots on the ground, connecting with your audience, saying hi to them, and just like being there for them when they need you. And then secondary to that, off the back of our success that we have with Taylor Swift, we went to the Hoka Half Marathon not that long ago in Sydney. And we had a sign that said 21.1 kilometers with a camel toe. I think not. And we were literally just at the start line, clutching people into their bike shorts before the race. And it just, again, went down like a house on fire. And again, we're there when they need us most.
That's the best. For such like this like creative sort of content-led, founder-led business, but then like quite a low AOV, you have people buying like one tube at a time.
Yeah.
At what point do you start like investing more heavily into paid ads, or is it even at this stage a core part of your strategy?
It is and it isn't, and it's a balancing act. We really want to make sure that with the paid comms, we're reaching people that still don't really know about Clutch. Like we're more so doing like awareness campaigns than we are sort of conversion campaigns, because I think that's just the best way to get people like into our story in this business. Like again, it's like not this transactional thing. It's just kind of like, I know that you haven't seen us, so like we're going to serve you this, and then you're going to be curious and go onto our Instagram and you're going to see that it's just us like hanging out, and we're just here helping each other out, and we're a part of the girlhood. And I think that that's more our paid comms strategy, is to just get people apart, like, a part of
It's less direct result marketing, conversion based. It's more here. This is who we are. This is what we do. Come be curious. And
Totally.
Join the fun.
And that just is really authentic because that's genuinely what I care about.
Yeah.
And like even down to when we receive like emails from people being like, oh, I didn't use it correctly. Can you help me? And like that means so much to me.
Yeah.
When people have used it incorrectly and know that they've used it incorrectly because they know that it works and they come and ask you directly for help instead of sending you an email being like, fuck you, it didn't work, you're a scam artist, which like, look, like 1 out of 10 is going to, it's going to be that. But like for the most part, what I think we've done so right and I can attest to our comms being really, really good is people know that it works and they know that they've used it wrong and they ask for help.
Speaking about like the way you and your sister have fun with the business and like creating all the content now, I don't know if you knew at the time that you were gifting your sister something that would be worth $1 million. I don't know too many people that have gifted their family members $1 million plus. Talk to me about that and like when did you gift it to her? What was her reaction? And then what has her reaction been since when she's realized what it's grown to be worth?
Yeah, so that was an interesting moment. I remember being on Shark Tank. I don't know whether it aired like on the episode. I remember them being like, so like who owns the business? And I was like, oh, I own like 85% of the business and my sister owns 15%. And they were like, oh, that's nice. And I was like, yeah, I gave her 10% of the company for Christmas on the 25th of December, 2022. And it was pretty much just this thing to just be like, we're doing this together.
Yeah.
I want you to help me. You care about this as much as I do. And I think that like, you've got to have some skin in the game here. She was so happy. She was ecstatic. And of course, none of us knew the direction it would go down. However, then 6 months had passed. And that's when we were like, okay, we're like going to go into Pipeline where like you're doing so like Lucy was spending as much time as I was, building this business, also working full time as well. So then I gave her another 5% of the company. So then she was at 15, I was at 85. And I remember then we got our company evaluation sort of like back end of like then last year. And then I was like, oh my God, like that's actually like worth quite a bit of money, but like I wasn't to know at the time, was I? But also that's my sister.
Oh no, it's not. I'm not saying it like, oh holy shit, I gave her too much. It's epic.
It's epic. If anything, she deserves more.
Yeah.
And like I'll go on the record and say that I think that like it is just as ingrained in this business as I am. So I have no regrets with that. But yeah, it is like it's just an interesting story because I'm sure so many more people probably have these stories of like I was given this stock and it's now worth less than when I was, things like that. But like,
doesn't always work out the way it did for you and your sister.
No, it doesn't. But like, I think that that's just such a great moment. I love it.
So what do you think drove like that such a high valuation? Like, because if like such a new brand, like sales are really good, but at 10 million valuation, like, is it sales? Is it profit? Is it like all the patents? Like, what do you think was the main drivers? Yeah.
Perfect storm.
Yeah.
I think also too, like me, as a founder, I think that like is a huge value add where they were just like, this isn't just like a celeb that slapped their name on something, or it isn't just like somebody who's just trying to rip off something else. It was like a completely novel thing. They could tell that I just like lived and breathed this company. Like they knew that like there was no question that they asked me that I didn't know the answer to. Yeah. And it was just things like that where they were just like, no, like you are cut out to operate this business because like if somebody ripped this away from you, I think that you would just die. So like there's that. So I think that, yeah, it was just all the potential that we could do because I think at the time we did the cap raise, we were mainly it was 70% of the revenue coming out of the US and then like the majority, pretty much everything else coming out of Australia and then a bit of New Zealand. And I was like, I just gave them the size of the prize being like, if we can work off our data that we've got here, look at how many people live in India, look at how many people live in the UK, in Europe, da-da-da-da. I was like, look at it. And they just went, yeah, we can't argue with that, can we?
So you were, again, I love like the strategy behind it as well. Were you already going through the process of looking at like raising capital before you went on?
Yes.
Talk to me about how all that worked out because it's really smart strategic play. I've got another friend, Maddie, who was on, I don't know if she's on your season, different season, and she's like went on and got an offer, but she's like, it was never really about that. It was about the moments afterwards.
Exactly.
But you had like this like multi-layered approach and it all worked out perfectly for you.
And it did. But that was particularly... sometimes I think that was maybe like a bit mean of me that I was like,
they really care. That's just a TV. We're invested in every single like how much time and money do they really want to put in, right? It's a TV show.
But also how much time do they have? Genuinely, like how much time do you have? Like and they don't. If they're genuinely investing in thousands of businesses, which like they would have at this point, if they had
everything
said,
went through.
if everything
One thing I do really enjoy is watching Davey's videos where he goes in and like helps the people like fix their businesses. Like
Totally.
there was a lady with like dog treats or something. I was like,
Totally.
it's really cool, but you can't do that with everyone. Like,
He's
come on.
cool dude. Can I just like seriously say I have a direct line to him.
Yeah.
And he will always respond. He's always helpful. Like he's a good dude.
Yeah, he seems
good dude.
Yeah.
Good dude, and like mad respect, and he deserves
Just got a fun with alpacas and lambs and cows. There's a dream.
Yeah. And so I think then, so what happened was, it just like all happened to be like this, right? So I got a DM from a producer that works for Shark Tank, and he was just like, would you think about going on Shark Tank? And I was like, fuck no. And I even made a TikTok that went viral about it, being like, I would never go on Shark Tank. Reason being, the reason actually behind like the wouldn't go on Shark Tank, it was more that like you would only go on Shark Tank if you're ready for it, because there's going to be a lot that happens after the show, and you've got to make sure that you're scaled properly and that you are in a good commercial mindset where you know that you can really take this and run with it.
Yeah.
So that was actually like the point of that TikTok that I made. Then the producer reached out to me being like, yeah, do you want to go on Shark Tank? And I said no, and he was just like, can you just like please give me your phone number? Like I'm just going to call you. And I was like, fuck, okay. Anyway, so then he calls me and then he starts, doing the whole thing, and I was just like, okay, maybe. And then around this time, Startmate, who are owned by Blackbird, who do accelerators, they then reached out being like, would you be a part of our accelerator? And I was like, no. We ended up getting into the accelerator, like applying, getting in, and then I was like, actually, no, this isn't right for me because we're already like 18 months like into this business. Like a lot of what Startmate is for is sort of pre-revenue side of things. And I was like, look, actually, I don't think I'm going to get as much value out of this, so I'll politely decline.
They're mainly from the tech space.
Exactly right. So I was like, okay, maybe that's not right for me. So I like politely declined, but you stay in that VC network as you do. Once you're in the VC network, they'll never let you go. And so then I ended up saying yes to Shark Tank because I was just like, oh, fuck, like whatever. I was speaking to people that have been on there before, and they were like, you can always say no off the show. And I was like, oh, okay. And then we started.
Now that you mention it.
Yeah, now that you tell me that, like, let's go. So then I was like, right, we've got one shot to be on Shark Tank, and it's one take. And if you say or that is going in the edit. I can guarantee you that. So I was like, this has to be perfect. Nothing short of perfect. So we ended up putting about 100 hours into this pitch to make sure that it was perfect. And it was like down to the wardrobe malfunction. Like we spent hours trying to figure out what the malfunction would be. Like it wasn't going to be the strap. At one point it was me walking in with like a bike short that's like, well up here. And, just there were so many things that we were kind of going through. Anyway, we landed on the strap and, that was obviously we all know how that worked out. It was absolutely brilliant. But then we did the Shark Tank pitch. It all went really well. And then my lawyer called me, who's always just someone who I bounce ideas off from a commercial perspective. And he was like, I know you said no to Startmate. I know that you're saying no to the Sharks, which they'll find out in due course that you'll end up declining their offer. Would you actually think about doing a real raise? Because like this is kind of what's happening in front of you and you're like not seeing it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So then he started to talk me through that, and he was just like, before the show, he was like, your evaluation is $2 million for 20% of the business. But Shark Tank were like, no, you're going to have to go on for like way less than that, because that doesn't make particularly good TV, right? Like they want to make sure that they're getting an absolute bargain. So I just went on with an undervalued business saying 200 grand for 10%, fucking, shut up and take my money type vibe was what we wanted. I also didn't want to go on the show and speak for 45 minutes about commercials.
Yeah.
I wanted to speak about how good my product was for 45 minutes, because all I could...
So your pitch is 45 minutes you're in there?
You're in there for 45 minutes and the episode is maybe 12 or 13 minutes long.
Wow. So they're like cutting and editing.
Yeah, and you've also got no idea what they'll ask you. They don't know who you are before you go in the tank. Like it's full just like improv. So the way that works, you walk in the tank, you get 2 minutes to do your pitch where they can't interrupt you at all. And then you finish with a sentence like sharks, blah, 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 question mark. And then that's when they know it's their invitation to talk. And so mine was like, sharks, who's ready to bond with your clothes like never before? And then it was just like question. Jane Lou, actually, which you don't see in the episode, first question, she goes, stop talking. She was just like, I'll do it. It was like, I'll invest. And like, that was just, I was like, oh my God. I was like, what is happening right now? I was just like, I thought that this would be like some scary, crazy thing. And they were just there like fucking bickering with each other, fighting, like the whole thing. I was like, oh my God, it's all happening. But I remember being very present because I was very prepared. I was over prepared and I knew exactly every single answer to all questions that could be asked under the sun because we did these mock Shark Tank nights.
Yeah, the fish tank.
The fishbowl nights. It was so fun.
Yeah.
And we had like, I don't know, shark-like people that came and like absolutely grilled me. It was just the best thing we could have done. We were so prepared. And then anyway, off the show, I was like, well, the edit can only go one way and it's only good because nothing bad happened in the tank. So with that, my lawyer was like, I can get you a pitch with Blackbird if you want. I know them and I know that they would want to hear you out. So then we did a pitch to Blackbird. And then within that pitch, I was like, by the way, we were about to have some notable media. My episode should come out between November and December. At that point, I didn't know. And just FYI, this is how the episode went. And me not even, like, I literally didn't know where the edit would be. Everybody found out at the same time.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like lied a little bit, being like, it's going to be the best episode ever. Of course, like that is the way that it did work out. But like, I wasn't to know, truly.
Yeah. There's only so much you can spin something, right?
Exactly. And anyway, so then I was like, they were on board. And I remember I was at a conference and I remember getting the email from Blackbird being like, we want it like all 2 million for 20%. And I remember being like, holy fucking shit. Again, one of those moments where I was like, what is going on?
What is life, huh?
What is life? And then I would just like burst into tears. Again, I'm like in the middle of this conference. There are thousands of people there and people are like, is this chick like okay? And I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to pass out. And then I just left the conference. I was like, I don't even need to be going.
Like mentally, I'm not here anymore.
Not here anymore, right? So then I like left and then I spoke about it with my lawyer and he was just like, look, you probably want to diversify your cap table a little bit. Maybe give them a 15% of that and then fill out the extra 5% of the round with some other strategic investors. So my lawyer ended up investing, as did Mullan from Koala, and a few other strategic investors that had really helped us along the way. I kept the cap table very lean, but I kept it very productive. And there were people that we'd already been working with and I knew that I could trust. So that's kind of the way that I structured that. And then that all closed out in the last year. And then since then, holy fuck, like it's just, again, exploded. Like we keep on just having these like big bang moments where you're just like, this is crazy.
There's a couple of things I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about the 2025 growth and all that recent stuff that's changed once you went full time. We'll talk about that. And then I want to rewind to a more challenging year that I think you've spoken about before in 2023 afterwards. That kind of contrast both of them.
Yeah.
But let's start with the good. Why not? Talk to me about like all that crazy, like I think it was before we started rolling, he said, so much is happening with this business. Like every like few months, it feels like there's this whole new things to report. So what does 2025 look like that just like blew you away?
Hiring people. People work for me.
Wow.
That's
Steph's, huh? But you were doing it real lean, you and your sister, and like that was it.
Yeah, that was us just literally like doing it when we could.
Yeah.
Double handling inboxes, in our full-time jobs. And that was just the way it was, literally bringing orders to work.
Wow.
And then like taking to the post in my lunch break and things like that. And like, that's a really sweet part of the journey. And also was just like, my environment was conducive to, allowed me to do.
A lot of workplaces probably wouldn't.
Was very lucky. And like, again, I will always say that I absolutely loved where I worked for 9 years. So I think that for starters, was interesting, switch to now have people that like, I feel like I'm only just recently full-time into this business.
Yeah.
And now they're like hiring people and I'm just like, what is going on? Like I'm somebody's boss. I have to like performance review people. Like what do you mean? Like most people are older than me as well working for me, and you're just kind of like, oh my God, like.
It's an interesting dynamic, isn't it?
It's interesting. And it's also interesting being with people that like objectively do not care about this business as much as you do. And like, that's just been like something that I don't have any advice on. That's just like the way that it is.
And how did you go about hiring? Like, because I'm assuming you haven't really hired many people before.
No, it's definitely not. I'm purely vibes based.
Yeah. Based hires. I love it.
Always like, obviously their experience means a bit there, but like just knowing people that I know I can, have like a good friendship and relationship with is always the way that I start. And I think from there that kind of can rule out at least 70% of the applicants that we get is that I'm just like personality wise, we're not really janky.
If you're putting all this on the line to start your own business and you get to choose who you hire, why wouldn't you hire people that you enjoy spending time with?
Exactly right. Like we're all going to do this for, 12 hours a day, at least 5-6 days a week. So, I may as well like you.
What was the hardest role that you've had to hire for?
I would say marketing roles are like an interesting one. In that, C-suite roles like our COO, like that was an absolute no-brainer to us, like who we hired for that. We didn't even put an application out for that. Like we had someone and we knew we would hire. But then when it came to the marketing roles, that's an interesting one because marketing is this like strange, like multifaceted sort of thing where like some people are really good at, like, I didn't realize like how just there are performance marketers and then there's this marketing and that marketing and then there's graphic designers and there's like, all of these things that create this suite of people. There's not just like this one person that like does all these things. So it's just like, it was the realization probably that I didn't need to hire one person in marketing. I needed to hire like 5.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, that's a lot of work.
Yeah. And you can't like, I feel like there's some, I mean, when you're in like a startup, there's not many areas you can hide compared to a corporate, but marketing, like the numbers don't lie. If you're in marketing, it's like, well, you can say whatever you want to say, but very quickly we'll know if what you're saying is true, right?
Totally.
Have you had to let anyone go yet?
Not yet. And that is something that I absolutely dread because I like people. I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to hurt people
so much. And I always, like, I know having uncomfortable conversations is part of business and part of growth, but I still
hate it.
I don't know if I've gotten much better at it. I'm better at doing it, but I don't feel internally any like that shit about it. Like, I'm just like, why am I so fucking like anxious and nervous? Like, and I'm not an anxious person, but I some reason, I know.
Go with you, but it's like somebody's life and like livelihood, and that's just wow.
I know. So what have been like the major growth factors driving the growth, say 2025? Any new retailer deals? Any new type of like content that's performing really well, whether it be organic or paid? Like what have been the levers that you've like with the extra team have been able to pull? Because you and your sister have 4 hands, now you've got however many. What has changed in terms of like the activities that are driving the growth?
Now that we know, so our D2C strategy was always pretty good from the get-go. Like we had a 3PL, we have a 3PL in the US, we have a 3PL in Australia, but now we're like, look at all these other markets that we can unlock. So now having like a COO and his core focus is literally the day-to-day operations of making sure we got shipments going here and there and whatever. That then was like a huge part of my day that got completely taken off my plate. And knowing that I've got someone who is completely wholeheartedly responsible for our distribution is excellent. It's the shittest job in the world. Any operations people out there, like hats off to you. You are seriously the backbone of the business. And it was like, all right, well, we want to try and service Europe. So now we've got a European 3PL and just like all of these things that we just had the capacity to do.
How did you decide what countries to expand into next? Because you were very like US and Australia. And then how do you know? Because at the start, you can just start, okay, let's go here, let's go there, let's go here. But there's a lot of implications that come with that. Strategically, how did you decide which markets to go into?
Social media comments, just the ones that got the most.
Driven from that.
And anyone that would comment anything, being like, when can this be available in India? When can this be available in like Cyprus? You name it, we've screenshot it and it's in a folder. Like, I promise you that it is there. And so like from there, that also really helps, not just with our own distribution strategy of like, right, like we need to obviously unlock Europe and create faster shipping for them and also at a lower cost. We also want to make sure that we can bring that to retailers and be like, this is a beautiful opportunity for you to be, have an exclusive launch with us, because we're not available in this market. But like, look at how often we get this comment.
Yeah.
And so that to us was just like the most proof that we could ever have was that people were actually taking time out of their day to leave a comment to be like, I need this product now.
So activating in a new region, you try and launch that with a retailer rather than just relying on D2C?
We try and go like bit of both. We try and do D2C first before then retailing in that market, mainly being because then the retailer does want to see some of that data to be like, all right, you're selling 2,000 a day to this market or whatever it might be, so we know that then we can sell X amount and we're going to need a PO of this amount. Just the trickle down is really good from that. So then also just like, if we're going to have a 3PL to service, whether it's a retailer launch in Europe or whether it's a retailer launch in India, we're going to need that logistics center anyway. So then we may as well just do D2C and B2B from the same logistics center. It's the same cost.
Do you know, like, because it's just crazy hearing like numbers like thrown around. Do you know the day that either like the biggest POs came in or like the most units you sold in a day? Because I'm sure with the say this business, I'm sure it'd be pretty crazy. I saw a post of yours from like, I don't know, pretty recently, like just 60,000 units sitting on a new order coming to the warehouse.
That was for CVS, 60,000 in a day.
Crazy.
That was
1,000 in a day.
That was just I like remember just, in the cartoons when they're like blinking and they like rub their eyes, like that was me just like looking at that photo for half a day, just being like, what?
Yeah.
This is bonkers.
Imagine, obviously it's different, but imagine they were all D2C. Imagine 60,000 Shopify notifications going off in a day. Your phone would stop. Would blow up. Would blow up like that first day.
No, fully. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, exactly.
When was the moment you turned that off? Because I feel like that's when you really made it. Because most people are like, no, I could never turn that off. But again, at a point, you're like, no, I better. Like,
Yeah, no, I don't.
how long ago was that?
6 months ago?
Okay, so full time, I can't be distracted by Shopify. I'm going all in.
Pretty much.
Um,
Well, like Shopify is on my. I tell you what the main reason was for this was that like it kept on then like distracting me on my phone. So then I'd click on it and then I'd be, I don't know, just like then in some Shopify vortex and then I'd be on an Instagram vortex because that's then how phones work, right? So like
yeah.
I realized like the less notifications I get, the better on my phone because then I'm like only dealing with on my phone like what I need to. So that's a computer job now. Shopify computer job.
Yes. I'm really, really bad at like replying to like messages and calls because 95% of the time my phone is on complete sleep mode because
Yeah.
I just don't like notifications.
I know
So
you.
sorry, FYI, if people have been waiting for a reply. I'll get to it, but yeah.
Double text me.
Double text. Yeah.
Like-
Call me. Just call me and then
Yeah.
text me, hey, call me back. And that's it.
Literally.
But we could speak about like, honestly, this has been one of the podcasts. I've hardly even like asked any of my questions. But I want to talk about some of the challenges because yes, it's cool to talk about, all the growth and all the exciting things, but obviously you don't get to that position without going through some of the crap. Now, you've spoken about, I don't know if it was an article I read or a podcast I listened to, but 2023 was more of a challenging year.
Super hard.
Could you take us like behind the scenes? Like what were the wars you were fighting? What were the biggest lessons you took away? Because I know it was quite a transformational year for the business and
Definitely.
yourself.
I think because, when you go viral overnight and you've been in business for 3 months, you've got no fucking idea what's going on. And if anybody tells you any differently, they're lying. They're a liar. And so for me, it was just like so much learning. It was like, well, now people have this expectation that I'm this business. And regardless of whether that's true or not, that's my perception. And that's the way I do actually need to be perceived. I need to be taken seriously from a customer perspective and I need to be taken seriously when it comes to retailers as well, right? So I just really wanted to get that right. But behind the scenes, it was like we just had so many problems. Our first batch that we had ended up, a bunch of the tubes were leaking. And so then we were recalling that stock, replacing them with new ones or giving them mass refunds, also express shipping, everywhere. It's really expensive. And we ended up just losing so much money from that whole
People
process.
think, oh my God, you made that many sales. She would have been like making so much.
No. I lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Lost a lot. And then also when then you're paying like, right, well, now I've sold 5,000 units. I probably need like 10, 15, 20 now. So then you're paying so much money and like stock and inventory and like all of these things. And then I'm like, all right, well, I need like a platform now to like actually be able to track this inventory. It was just like all of this transformation that was happening around me where I was like mass refunds and all of that kind of stuff. Plus I need more stock. Plus people are mad at me on the internet. So like, how am I going to like overcome that kind of PR and things like that? And obviously at the time that felt like the world was like crumbling around me. But just overcoming that adversity is incredibly important.
Do you remember what your low point was? Like, was there a moment that you can pinpoint where you're like, oh, it's a bit much right now, isn't it?
I remember there was a TikTok that went viral that it was just us stitching a video of a girl that her ears to a like thing had like come off or whatever, and but she was at a Melbourne or a Perth show, so like we weren't there. And my sister just like stitched the TikTok just being like, I'm so sorry we weren't there to help you, but like we'll send you a free tube of clutch, and it was meant to be this nice moment. And then like it went totally viral for all the wrong reasons. Like people in the comments being like, my clutch like exploded all over my Louis Vuitton handbag and things like that. And then people were like getting on top of like piling on top of that. Then we were getting fake emails from people being like, fuck you, send me a free tube. And I was like, can you send me like your order number? And of course, like they didn't have an order. But there was just so much time spent dealing with the info inbox and all of the community management and kind of just how that felt like everything was kind of crumbling down. Plus then there were fake things happening. I was just kind of like, what the fuck is going on?
What do you think is that like psychological phenomenon that just if people just want to like jump in on it, like anything whenever they can, like it's not everyone obviously, but you see it happen all the time. It's like What part of the weird human psyche drives that? I don't
People love
understand.
failure. They do. They love it. And that's where the engagement comes from, unfortunately. Most of the time, like, we get a lot of really good engagement, it's either one extreme or the other. You get really good engagement for being really positive and people reacting really well to something, or you get engagement purely because like somebody just decides like something's shit.
Yeah. And you can have 90% positive and 10% negative, and that 10% negative can be really loud, and it's what you tend to remember as a person, right?
You remember it, and it always need to remind yourself it's a very loud minority, and they are always going to be like that because I guarantee if it's not their TikTok they're leaving a hate comment on, it's somebody else's, and we're not special in that instance, right? We need to remember that people are just unhappy.
Like completely off topic, and I don't even imagine you watch like rugby league, but there was a game on last night. And someone on one of the teams like made a bunch of errors and dropped a few balls, gave away a few penalties, but then he scored like a couple of tries and won the match for him. And the screenshot was shared. This kid was sending death threats like "F you, I'm going to kill you, no, we're not forgiven just because you won the game." And like he actually shared it, which I think, good on you. Like if people's going that far, to do that, fucking call them out. And I just think like if you're ever in a position where you're putting yourself out there in terms of content or taking a risk and starting a business, just know you will get hate from certain people, but 100% of the time that hate and what's coming out of their mouth is a reflection of their own insecurities that you've triggered because you're actually doing it and you're actually trying. So as much as it's hard to separate yourself from that, you just have to realize that's a them problem. Try not let it bother you. It will bother you probably at the start, but then just try and work out like, who is this fucking person? They don't know. And it's just like, that's a them problem. And it's just like, I just find it so sad. And it's like, if you're the type of person that does that, I don't think many would be listening. But that's the true embarrassing thing, not the person you're hating on, like
No.
you.
No.
Look in the mirror.
Yeah. You made an interesting point here, and this was something that I was talking about yesterday, was hate comments that people leave. More often than not, from what I've found from accounts that I'll like go and look at like who's left a hate comment, more often than not, it's like a 14, 15-year-old child. They do not understand that you are a person. Like they haven't got that in their mind yet, that they are actually, there's another human on the other side of that, and their words have consequences and like meaning and emotion behind it. They haven't understand the gravitas of the situation that is leaving hate comments online.
The state of bullying in schools right now would be scary.
I would be terrified to have a teenager right now. It's like terrified. Yeah.
Crazy.
I know.
Onto those challenges.
Yes.
Because
we digress.
Like I know you've got a like COO now, which I'm like you say really very happy about.
It's awesome.
But like, how did you like manage the supply and the demand from a rapidly growing business? I mean, it's stock in Asia, it's stock in India, stock in the US, stock here. How did you sort of best navigate that until you're able to hire someone for it?
No, fully. I was just kind of like chasing my tail the whole time. But I was really productive during that time, definitely. And it made me understand like it's so much of shipping and logistics is like just completely out of your control. Like it just is. And you're going to be talking to somebody at DHL who doesn't give a flying fuck about your pallet that's in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
And so like that to me was just a really good lesson in being like, there are going to be so many people that I come across in this life that are just doing their job and they do not care about you. That is it. They are a cog in a wheel and that's fine. But I just had to remember that my expectations of myself and another employee at like, DHL, for instance, are going to be two completely different things.
I know. One thing I've realized, like, in that as well, it's like, if people are giving you really shitty service or they're letting you down, if it's a contractor or a partner, the place to start, even though you might not feel like it, always start being nice because you're far more likely to get the better outcome.
Yeah.
And then if you be really nice to them and they still don't do it, okay, then tell them, hey, this is unacceptable.
Totally.
But that's just going to happen. Another question I had, because you've got your 6,000 unit order for CVS, has all the tariff situation affected you much? And have you had to make any decisions or pivots from it? Or you just increase price 30%? Like, what have you done with that?
So there's no way we were going to increase price. Like, that was just like a hard rule that I just was like, there's no fucking way. Like, I'm going to have to try and figure it out a different way. The good part was when there were all these whispers, when Trump came into office, do you remember how he was campaigning, being like, I'm going to raise the tariffs and like all of this kind of thing? I was just like, I know this man is for reals as well. Like, he is just going to like be a cowboy and like do that kind of thing. So I was like, hey, we're sending so much stock over there. So we did.
Okay, beforehand.
Before all of
So
this was
smart.
happening. So we just like sat on stock over there, which was really good. So, and that was around the time that CVS all launched as well. And we knew that we were getting replenishment POs and just this whole thing. So I was like, we need to sit on stock there. Then I like kept tabs on the tariff situation very closely. Every hour it was changing. It was like a 300.
It was never going to be a long-term
No.
thing as it was. And I understood that because like Walmart's entire business would have been like, they were saying like, if this continues for like a month, we'll have like 70 to 90% bare shelves. Everyone's.
And like literally, and this was the thing. And then I was like, all right, Mr. Trump, I'm going to understand whether I could actually make this product in the US. I was like, I'll do a feasibility for you just to entertain you, even though he's got no idea.
Like, I understand the thought of wanting to bring, like, having less of a reliance on China, like, but certain industries, okay, maybe, and do like it has to be a long-term plan. If you just click your finger, like, it fucking affected everyone.
Everything. And this is the thing though, right? So then I was like, all right, let's see whether we can do this. I realized that most of my raw materials are made in China. My packaging is made in China because Australia doesn't do 100% recycled materials. That all gets offshore to China, right? Not very many people know that like recycled packaging, it's all done in China. So regardless of whether the product was getting made in America, didn't matter because it was going to get tariffed anyway. Whether it was at the beginning of the supply chain and the end of the supply chain, it was just going to get tariffed. And I was just like, right, we're kind of like, it's a lose-lose situation like going on here. And so I was like, okay, now what? Because if COVID taught us anything, and if this political situation has taught us anything, is that diversifying a supply chain is important. We saw it with COVID, and that there were just like full container loads of things that were just like stuck in the ocean for months and months and months because, you know, nobody wanted to unload anything and like this whole thing. So I was like,
Park it out there for a few weeks.
just park it out there, and then it ended up being there for years. Probably still there. And so then I was like, okay, I don't want us to be in a situation where we're not able to get our product out. What does diversifying our supply chain look like from actually a more sort of a longevity standpoint? So I was like, Europe actually would be an interesting one because they've got excellent skilled labor. They have excellent manufacturing capabilities over there. They're a really big market, and they're just like less politically volatile with the US was like also another thing. So then we sort of chuffed on over there, and we met some really great manufacturers, and we met with one specifically that we really, really liked. So now we have diversified our supply chain, and we've got Europe manufacturing, and then we also have China manufacturing capabilities. Yeah. The thing that kind of like just freaks me out the most about manufacturing is that we have to give over our IP, obviously. Like they have to know how to make clutch. And that to me is just like, I could have just the tightest NDA you've ever come across, but like people are people, right? And like, that's an interesting thing. So meeting these people face to face and like getting to know them on this personal level is the only way that I could ever have reassurance that I could give my IP over. So if anybody's looking at, you know, diversifying their supply chain or going to a new manufacturer, you get on a flight and you meet them face to face.
How much, like, and just give me ballpark figures here, like how much more expensive is it to manufacture in Europe versus China? Like,
I'd like double.
Yeah.
I was
Expecting something like that.
Yeah, but in saying that, like, you know, the quality of the product is still great, and at least for the European market, we're then just like servicing
Right there at least, right? Yeah. And then you've got a backup should anything go down bigger.
Exactly right. So you're playing. There's a bigger picture there that's just not necessarily about your cost of goods. So the added complexity though to dealing with two different manufacturers here is that like then it's added forecasting, added cogs in terms of getting your unit economics right and all of that, and your just all of that. There's a lot at play there. It's not just like, okay, set sail at, you know, this many dollars a unit and whatever. It's just like, well, it's nurturing those relationships and making sure I'm getting the forecasting right, and what if I get it wrong, and like what are your lead times, and I don't know, there's a lot that goes into that people sort of don't foresee.
We'll start to wrap up soon, but I just remembered something. I want to chat a couple of retail things. We didn't come back to that Woolies story because we had a similar experience with one of our retailers in the US. We were like, there was a period of like, why are we selling more online than in store? And which is like never happens. And then we were sent to people out to investigate, and like our product wasn't out in fucking any of the stores. What the fuck, guys? And then you're like, why aren't you selling in store? Well, why don't you put it out for a start? That might help. What was your experience with that? Because I get really fired off about this sort of stuff.
So this was an interesting one. It was similar with the trending end cap that we did for CVS. CVS are great. Love you, CVS. Woolies, was just like, tell you what really let me down was that like in my mind, I was like, surely they are like the pinnacle of distribution in Australia. There's so many Woolies stores.
Everywhere.
Like you are like one of the wealthiest companies in the world. Like I'm sort of like, I was just, in my mind, I really put them on a pedestal as just like, you've got your shit figured out. Like how cool. And then I realized it was anything but that. Like I remember speaking to the buyers and they were like, they gave me 2 weeks to give them like over 15,000 units, which like I can't manufacture a clutch into it, and somehow put a rabbit out of my hat. I was like literally calling anyone like on my hands and knees, just being like, please like get this over the line. And we ended up doing it. We printed custom boxes for them and things like that. We even had instruction manuals about like how to, all it was literally like, the shelf ready tray that you have. And all they needed to do was pop it out and then tuck it in, because then it had a little backing card, which had some information around the product. And it had like an instruction manual about how to like put that on the shelf and the whole thing. Anyway, we got it to them within 2 weeks. And then it was a 6-week trending thing where it was meant to be on the end of the aisle and it looked like this. We spent so much money on paid comms to get people out to the stores to buy it. It was 12 units per store. About 3 weeks into the campaign, we were like, hey, can you like send us some sales data? Because we're also getting messages from people being like, I've been to 6 different Woolworths that are on your store finder and it's not there. So I just bought it from Priceline or I just bought it directly from you. And that's really devastating where you're like, you spent that much time, I've wasted your time, is how that feels. And so I was like, hey, can you just like send us our sales data? I'm really confused. And anyway, it came back basically saying that we'd sold like almost nothing. And I was like, what is going on? So then we sent a third party like merchandiser to go out and see what was going on. And they were just like, oh yeah, it turns out that 60% of the stores haven't even put it out yet. So it turns out that only on week 5 of week 6 of the trending end cap, 65% of stores had put it on the shelf, and the other remaining stores literally still out the back after that 6 weeks. It was there. It's just like nobody had put it out. And then the whole agreement was at the end of the 6 weeks, we would, any stock that remains, I'm buying it back. Reason being, I know that that's a really expensive process, but I wanted to buy it back because I still had not enough stock. I was still selling out online every single day. I was like, I need the stock. And then they turned around after the 6 weeks and they were like, no, we're putting it on clearance 75%. Obviously, that's funded by you as well. And then, so that it goes on clearance. Again, it's not even, that's when they decide to get it out and put it on the shelf when it's on clearance.
Brand funded.
All brand funded, exactly right. So they're getting
The
that.
look of disgust on Joe's face says it all.
Like,
she had a camera on you, by the way.
So then we're spending like all of this money like on, reimbursing them for all of the sales and things like that. We're still pushing people into store. And then I tell you what, the real kicker that really fucks me, this keeps me up at night. I'm about to punch the wall. So at that time, Chemist Warehouse Australia were doing a range review and they came back to us saying that they wouldn't range it because we're on clearance at Woolworths. And I just was devastated. I was just like, that was completely beyond my control. They didn't put me on the shelf. And tell you what's crazy, any of the stores that did put it on the shelf, they all sold those 12 units within the first 2 weeks. Should have given them double, shouldn't I? It was just like stuff like that where I was just like, what the fuck?
And
like,
after they're making you jump through all the hoops, get it in 2 weeks, that's the thing. Like, I've got to, obviously retail is an amazing channel, but I think it's harder than e-com.
It's harder than e-com. And I spoke to somebody this morning about this. They were just like, should I go retail or should I just stay e-com? And I was like, if you can nail e-com, do not deal with retail.
So many other headaches. You have so much less control. And what was the conversations like when you presented them the information that, bro, you weren't 60% of the stores didn't have it out?
It was just really sad that, like, I remember, we came from the end of that, then there was a range review where they were just like, well, you didn't meet the minimum, like, unit sold requirement. And I was like, obviously, it wasn't on the shelf.
Oh, no shit.
No shit. And I was like, right, like, and here's all the data. We sent a merchandiser out, like, all of this kind of stuff. Here's the response that we got from the internet, like, the whole thing. And they were like, okay. And then they were like, we'll only range you if we have exclusivity. And I was like, well, why would I give you exclusivity if you can't even put me on the fucking shelf? So that's when I just went,
No.
Nah, not happening.
I'm the same thing for you. Like,
I think about it once a day and I just go,
whenever you're at the gym and you just don't have any energy to push through, you're like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to go to that place.
Fully.
And like, let's in lighter news on a lighter topic. I saw a clip of somewhere, like you want to be ranged in every 7-Eleven in the world. Is that still a goal?
Yes.
Like, talk to me through like that and why it's such a great fit for Clutch.
Every 7-Eleven in the world, because again, it's not a product that you need until you do. And not every single pharmacy or grocery store is open 24 hours a day. However,
Oh, true.
we all know that a convenience store is very much open at all hours. And there's nothing better than kind of those random interactions that you have with the convenience store guy at 3 a.m. You know, it's just always quite a fun moment. And I don't know, like having those drunken days being like, where's my Powerade, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's why we belong so well in convenience. And they're just like, especially in Asia and product and
Oh, how good are Asian convenience stores, by the way? Come on.
yes.
So best.
Like Japan 7-Eleven.
Bro, it's the same company. Just copy paste. Like, come on.
I agree.
Guys, please. 7-Eleven Australia. Look to Japan. Bring it here.
Bring it here, you know, and like just that's just the main mission, especially when it comes to retail ranging, is just that convenience.
Yeah.
Story is just, it's a missed opportunity that so many of them are sleeping on.
Massive.
But I know that once we crack that, that's going to be the next big bang
Yeah.
for me.
What do you think you need to do to be in a position to like get that deal across the line? Have you started conversations? Do you want to hit certain, like, do you know what you got to do in order to get that?
Got to finesse those relationships with those buyers. It's the main thing that I think people don't really think about. You can have as much data and storytelling behind you as you possibly can get, but unless you just have those relationships and that trust with that buyer, that's kind of when that really comes through. They don't really let you in though. You've really got to just like finesse it in little
Little bit here and there. Oh, I'm sure you'll do it at one point and it'll be an amazing story when you do.
It will be.
We'll start to wrap up because it's an hour 22. How fast has that gone later, right? I know. A few final questions to wrap up, short ones. I like to ask this sometimes, what's one thing that you can't get off your mind at the moment, apart from what we just discussed, the work story?
What can I not get off my mind? Always, like, my mind always thinks about profit and loss, like always. Like, what are we looking at this month? Because it's so different every single month, and like we're investing so much into marketing. There's a very, very exciting campaign that I'll tell you about off camera. So we'll give a little teaser though.
Yeah.
A very large partnership is about to occur.
I'm excited.
And I can't get that off my mind in a really positive way.
Yeah.
And in a really negative way, I just like, I'm always thinking about like what the money's doing.
Yeah. The second question off the back of it, it's often a similar answer, but sometimes it's something quite different. If you ever have those nights where you can't sleep, what's often keeping you up at night?
Probably just the narrative control. Like as the business grows, I still want this founder-led brand, and I don't want people to think that I'm like some corporate sellout, even when I've got like people working for me.
Yeah.
And I want people to know that I'm still very much the one at the info at Clutch Glue email address. I want people to know that I'm still on socials, doing the community management, still posting. Like all of that is still me, and I never will lose that because I find that that's just the best way to connect with our audience. And it's more just like that narrative that's beyond my control of people perceiving me to perhaps get too big.
So if you send an email to info@Clutch Glue,
Me.
it's you. Wow, at this stage. Crazy. And I think you can really, Gary Vee's one of my biggest mentors, and talks about like sometimes you just need to scale the unscalable if you really want to win. And it's like most people won't do that. So the fact that you will do gives you a really good competitive advantage, particularly being so close to the customers. And second last question, I know you're cooking up some other ideas and don't expect you to share what they are right now. But how long until we can expect to see some new products launching from Clutch?
October this year.
That's not far away.
It's another brand new novel product. There is literally nothing else on the market like.
I'll take it again and stuff.
Yes.
Oh my God, she's done it again.
She's done it again. It's going to be really good. So wait for
I
that.
can't wait for that. So that'll be a few months from the time we drop this podcast. So that's really close. Annabel, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a really fun one. As I said, I hardly really went through my questions. It's just been one of the ones you hit record and we just roll, baby. Final question for everyone that's like, this chick's mad, or I really love the sound of that product. Where can they find you and the brand online so they can follow along and join the journey?
Well, info@clutchglue.com. Also follow me on socials at Annabel_Hay, or just go over to Clutch Glue Instagram or TikTok at Clutch_Glue.
Boom, we done it, baby. There we go. Another one in the books. Thank you so much. That was so much fun. Thanks.
Good.
That was
Thank
good.
you.
That was great.